A Washington Post reporter named Greg Miller has a long, detailed, measured overview of Fat Ass 45's long history of public and private racism. It begins with an explosive, previously unreported anecdote. After phone calls with Jewish lawmakers, Fat Ass 45 has muttered that Jews are only in it for themselves and stick together in an ethnic allegiance that exceeds other loyalties. Officials said, "Really, because I think because that basically the Fat Ass is describing himself. He's not describing Jews. He's just the Fat Ass 45 is describing himself basically." And note that while the sources for this anecdote have not been named, there are more than just one of these. There is nothing that can make the majority of conservatives who have embraced Fat Ass 45 admit he is racist, the only exception being the openly white nationalist extremists who explicitly adore the Fat Ass because he's a racist himself. Racism is a taboo trait, and conceding that they are endorsing the re-election of a racist forfeits too much moral credibility, and so they will respond with the usual litany of deflections. If the evidence comes from officials speaking off the record, it can't be trusted. If they are speaking on the record, they will either have left the administration or be fired immediately, which means they are disgruntled. Failing either of those methods, they can simply ignore the evidence or point to some outrage committed by a Democrat or some Democratic winger with a social media account. But what gives these private accounts added credibility is that they line up closely with Fat Ass 45's public statements. He has repeatedly depicted American Jews as having what they call a dual loyalty. In 2019, he described Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to a group of American Jews as your prime minister. In 2018 and 2020, he referred to Israel as your country. Anti-Semitism comes in many forms. Fat Ass 45 is absolutely not an elimination. An eliminationist anti-Semite like Hitler was. In some ways, he admires Jews and attributes them to traits of selfishness and shrewdness that recommend them as underlings and partners. Like Richard Nixon, he's able to combine personal anti-Semitism with a public record of support for Israel. What can't be plausibly denied, however, is that he is an anti-Semite. Miller's reporting contains far more detail about Fat Ass 45's racism. Nearly all of it is already known to the public. It is revealing, though, that new evidence continues pouring out faster than anybody can keep track of it. Last night, Fat Ass 45 delivered a riff about Representative Ilhan Omar that was even uglier by Fat Ass 45ian standards. She's telling us how to run our country, he announced. How did you do where you came from? How's your country doing? She's going to tell us. She's telling us how to run our country. Omar immigrated to the U.S. as a child from Somalia. She obviously has no responsibility for civil strife in a country that she fled as a child, but Fat Ass 45 is casually insisting that an immigrant who became a U.S. citizen cannot be an American, and last year he led crowds in chants of "Send her back." If Fat Ass 45 officials confirmed off the record that Fat Ass 45 said that this is the White House, his supporters would angrily deny it. But he said it on a stage in front of everybody, in front of television cameras. The semi-official explanation for Fat Ass 45's beliefs is that he abuses minorities for reasons other than bigotry. He does it to everyone. Not everything is about race, explained former Bush Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. I think he's just combative, said Rick Santorum, who's a dumbass anyway, but a former senior White House official makes a version of this defense to Miller. This is a guy who abuses people in his cabinet, abuses four-star generals, abuses people who give their life for this country, and abuses civil servants. It's not like he doesn't abuse people that are white as well. Does it require anything? Does it require saying that racists, even the most extreme racists, sometimes behave abusively toward members of their own racial group? If so, there is a well-known clip from Downfall that dramatizes the whole point. A related version of this defense is that Fat Ass 45 merely appreciates his supporters and lashes out at opponents, and so he refuses to denounce Nazis and lashes out at minorities as an impulsive act of political tribalism. I don't think that Fat Ass 45 is in any way a white supremacist, a neo-Nazi, or anything of the sort, another former senior administration official tells Miller, but I think he has a general awareness that one component of his base includes those type of factions that trend in that direction. But this ignores the long history of Fat Ass 45's racism, which Miller runs through, long predating his political career, dating back at least to his refusal to rent rooms in his father's apartment to black people. As Miller notes, There are different forms of racism, and Fat Ass 45's variety of it allows him to posture as a friend of black people and to work closely with Jews, and yet the undeniable fact is that Fat Ass 45 is a racist. His racism shapes his public rhetoric and his political program, and it implicates anybody who supports him. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Random Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.